Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is a show where your questions make the show. Without your questions, I don't have a show. This is for August 2024. I just came back from the Music City Drum Show and a visit to New Jersey, and life has been extremely busy. I want to thank everybody that watches my videos every day, and you are the inspiration for doing my videos every day. I have to be honest. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't think I'd be doing videos every day. Right now, it's been kind of nuts the last couple months of travel and being away on the weekends and having activities to do and things to do that it's got to the point where I'm not getting as many drum covers done in a weekend. So with that being said, I don't know how I'm going to keep up this pace and dropping one video a day, except for having this backlog of what I call alt-take or vintage alt-take videos. So please let me know if you think it's worth dropping the vintage alt-take videos. If it is, I'll continue to do them. If you guys feel like, I've already seen this, I don't really want to see it, let me know that too. I'd love to get some feedback in the comments. I should say this up front, please like and subscribe. I never do that. But if you're a fan of Ask Earl Anything, please leave a comment, let me know you enjoy this show. It seems to me like a lot of you enjoy this show. That's why I'm doing it. I'm sorry it's a little late this month. I did put out 4 talking video shows in the month of July, which also took away from time to build drum covers and make drum covers. So, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about those shows. 3 of the shows were in my cymbal journey. Hopefully you enjoyed them. I have a few more questions about cymbals and other things in this Ask Earl Anything show. The other one was about the Music City Drum Show, which I went to with my wife, met some good friends, Chadwick Perry, Joey Bag of Donut, and a subscriber, one of our subscribers who has a question for today. But also met a lot of really cool industry people. One of them was Kyle from the Pearl booth. He actually wrote on the video and said hi and said he saw it. His name is Kyle Loggins. I didn't get his name on the video because he didn't state his name, but I had his card somewhere and I didn't. Anyhow, the cards were not in the same place. So with that being said, I wanted to give a shout out to Kyle Loggins, the rep from Pearl, who was really nice enough to show me the Pearl booth and take some time to, talk with me while we were there at that show, which is what his job was to do, of course, to talk to people. But he really listened to some of my stories about my Pearl, fiberglass Pearl kit, among other things. So it was really nice meeting Kyle. I'll have some more discussions about the Music City Drum Show. Let's jump into the questions this month, because I'm not going to make this a long show. I'm going to try to make this a short show. And by the way, this is the second time I'm recording the show. That's how I know it's going to be a short show, because I've already done all these questions, and I guess I have some places I'll go with some things. My first question comes from Vince Gomez, 1212. Vince is a long time Ask Earl Anything question giver. He's given quite a few questions over the years. Here's his question. For next time, do you have any world percussion, hand drums, etc., that you use or play with regularly? Great question, Vince. I have lots of percussion. This is one of them, by the way. Right here, this is a djembe. This djembe in particular, my son gave me one Christmas. There's a lot of stories with this djembe about the head and all kinds of stuff. But in 2018, I got this drum restrung, and I'm glad I did, because for a while there, I actually tried to take some furry hair off of the head. If you ever seen a natural djembe head, it's got furry hair around it, and it comes off. They take it off with a razor blade. Anyhow, when he first gave me this drum, it really wasn't a great sounding drum, to be honest, because it was made in India, I believe, and it wasn't tightened properly. But one of his buddies came into the studio that was good with djembes, and he tightened it down and had this thing sounding really good. But he said, just get a razor and you take off the hair. I made the mistake of trying that, and when I did that, I nicked the head, and then one day the head was broken. And it sat over there in the corner as a lampstand with a piece of wood on it for about 5 years. I didn't use it at all. It just was a good lampstand. And I came back from a trip with my wife in 2017, and I decided I was going to get a new djembe head. So I found a guy in town that does djembe heads, really nice kid, and he did this djembe for me. It was like 125 bucks, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got it. So, but I love djembes. I have a few djembes. I have a Mountain Rhythm djembe, 12-inch, that my grandson beat with a stick. It's got a hole in it. That's another head that needs to be fixed. I met a guy in Nashville that probably can fix that head. Bovid Percussion. They're the ones who make this wonderful drum mute. Bovid Percussion. It's kind of cool on a snare drum. I used it on one cover. I'd love to get a bass drum head with the cow thing. You know, that's kind of cool. Gotta be honest. I may do that someday. But I also have this other djembe. This is my first djembe. This is a Remo djembe. Bought this. My wife bought this for me in 1995. I played this a lot. It's been on a lot of different things when I make loops and stuff. My wife's album, I made some loops with this. Love this djembe. I've reheaded it because I kind of wore it out with my ring, and I broke my ring on it 3 times too. That's another interesting fact of my wedding ring, which is over 41 years old now. I actually broke it. It's very thin in the back, and I broke it right here on this lip. So now, I love percussion. I love having percussion. This is a new shaker. Looks like a can of beer. I bought this at Drum Supply House in Nashville. And that's where this shirt comes from. Drums, y'all. I have a picture of me under the sign that says Drums, y'all, with my wife. It's a selfie kind of picture over at Drum Supply House in Nashville. So I met Andy Foote, really nice guy. So I bought this shaker. Apparently you can't sell them on Instagram because it looks too much like a beer can. Because it's not really a beer can, but it looks like a beer can. So it has to be put up as beer, and you need 21. You have to be over 21 to watch it. Ridiculous stuff here we live in these days, but love shakers. I have a bunch of shakers. So Vince, is it important to have percussion? Yes. I have a cajon, I have a set of congas, I've got a whole bunch of other things, a darbuka. I don't know. I just collect stuff. So having it is important for recordings and doing recording sessions with people. So, but this is a special djembe that my son gave me. By the way, it's the 5th anniversary of Matt's death on August 15th. And I don't know what else to say. You know, I will say that you guys have gotten me through the last 5 years. So thank you all for subscribing and watching my drum channel. It's where I play. Those of you who know my 4 words: walk, breathe, rejoice, and play. If I didn't have this outlet, I don't know what I'd be doing sometimes. You know, this is a great outlet for me to kind of share my life with you a little bit. Thank you all for listening and watching. So anyhow, that's all I got to say on that, Vince. Yep, have percussion. Think you should have percussion. A djembe and a cajon's good in this day and age. And a couple of nice shakers. Very important. Next question. This comes from Joshua Jari, 8757. You should do a video about your first pair of drumsticks. This is on my video about my cymbal collection. Now, I don't even remember my first pair of drumsticks. I got them with a snare drum when I was a kid. I do remember the first pairs of drumsticks I did not want to buy anymore and kept breaking. They were ProMark, by the way. And those of you that know me, for years I talked about Vader 5A drumsticks as being my main drumstick. In the last few years, you've seen me actually playing ProMarks. Well, one of the reasons why I didn't like ProMark sticks when I was a kid was because they were made of oak. I have a pair of oak ProMarks. These are from the 70s, I believe. And these are 2B ProMarks. So, what don't I like about oak ProMarks? They're too dense. And when I used to break them, they broke hard. I would break them right there at the shoulder, and I broke a lot of them. So I really had a disdain for buying the oak ProMark drumsticks. For years, I didn't use ProMark drumsticks, even though I was part of the Project X project in 1990s that ProMark did, where they would send sticks to try out and give them reviews on. I did that for years. It was late 80s, early 90s I did that. But it never turned me to becoming a ProMark player. It's only been the last couple of years I have a friend who's an endorser that got me some 5A drumsticks. And I learned something about 5A drumsticks. There's two types that ProMark makes. One is called Forward, and the other one is called Rebound. So my first batch I bought was Rebound. And that was a mistake. Because Rebound, it's heavier down here and it bounces. It's supposed to make it easier to kind of deal with the bounce. But for me, because it's so light up top, it doesn't feel right. So what I use, this is a Vic Firth, by the way. What I use is the Rebound ProMark. So let me see if I can find those sticks. Nope, another Vic Firth. Vic wants to be in this show this month. All right, here's the other pair. This is the Forward 5As. Forward means it's got more weight to the front. Rebound means more weight to the back. See how I'm not getting it? It's a little bit out of sync for me. Cool sticks to fire grains, by the way. I think you can get the fire grains in the Forward. Maybe next time I'll try that. But I really like the Forward 5As because they're hickory. And that was my thing with ProMarks, was getting a good hickory drumstick. Hickory is the wood of choice for my drumsticks. The oaks are too heavy, and the maples are a little light feeling to me. So I kind of dig the hickory sticks. I would say if you're going to buy drumsticks, that my preference is the Forward versus the Rebounds. But that was something I learned. ProMark makes great drumsticks. Vic Firth makes great drumsticks. Vader makes great drumsticks. By the way, the drum companies always made drumsticks. Slingerland always made drumsticks. Ludwig always made drumsticks. Now, they might have had people making them for them. That's a possibility. But probably my first pair of sticks with my blue Vistalite kit when I was a kid came with a pair of Ludwig 5Bs, I believe. So that they used to sell Ludwig drumsticks at my store. I have another friend, Nashville friend, who basically did some kind of a short, and he basically said, Ludwig drumsticks, why would you buy Ludwig drumsticks? Ludwig's been making drumsticks longer than most of the manufacturers of drumsticks today. Definitely longer than Zildjian, I'll say that. Zildjian got into the drumstick game a lot later in life, not earlier in life. But I digress. Drumsticks. I think making a video about my drumsticks history would be kind of crazy because I don't even know if I could say the first pair. But maybe one day I'll do a video about my stick bags because I got some interesting things in my brush stick bags. I'm a brush guy. I love brushes, so I have all kinds of different types of brushes. So thanks for the comment, Joshua. Here's another question from Edward Kaminsky, 8142. Edward's another guy that follows me pretty regularly. He said, for Ask Earl Anything, I've noticed many drummers will use the same crashes but different rides, or splashes or swishes. Are cymbals coupled or matched for their tonal qualities, like succession of toms, 8, 10, 12, 14? Or is it just the ear or individual musician that chooses? Now, I'm not sure what you meant by the question, Edward. If you meant brand-wise, that's a different angle. Let's talk about pairing cymbals of like brands. Within the brands today, there's lots of different cymbal classes. Like you've got your A Zildjian, K Zildjians. Back in the day, that's all you had was a K or an A. Now you've got A Custom, K Custom, Z, Planet Z, blah, 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 whatever. There's a bazillion of them. Paiste's got all kinds of lines. The earliest Paistes were Formula 602. Then you went to giant beats. Then you went to 2002s. And then you went to 404s and 505s. And eventually you went to 1000s and 2000s and 3000s. So, not sure what you meant by the question. But when it comes to pairing cymbals, it's always an ear thing. You always got to look at your ears, listen with your ears what you like and what makes a good sound to you. I talked in my Sabian video about my set of Sabian cymbals and my China cymbal, how I couldn't find a Sabian China that I liked. Well, I have found a Sabian-like China that I like. It's this China right here. That is a Tosco by Sabian, thin 18-inch China. It's a beautiful cymbal. Today I used it with Paiste 2002s. Giant Beats, the 2002 Splash, the 2002 Crash, and my 505 hi-hats, all B8 alloy. This is B20 alloy. Can you mix and match? Sure, whatever makes sense to you. Now, I try to keep Paistes with Paistes and Sabians with Sabians, but when it comes to China cymbals, sometimes a good old Wuhan is something you need. Even Neil Peart, when he played Zildjian for years, he had his Wuhan Chinas. A lot of guys did that with China cymbals. So mixing and matching cymbal tones and types of metals is something you're going to do, and most guys do within the lines of cymbals they actually endorse or love to play. Now, I love cymbals, as you can tell, and if you heard anything about my cymbal journey, I have Sabians and Zildjians and Paistes, and I've had Istanbuls. So I do love cymbals. I love having them. Now, I'm not a Meinl guy, and I'm not an independent cymbal maker guy as of yet. But who knows? We're going to talk more about independent cymbal makers in another question. So anyhow, Edward, I hope that answers your question. If you want to dial it in and rephrase the question, rephrase it so I can get down to where you really want to be. But as a general rule, it's all about the ears. It's all about the ears. My next question comes from Jack Niles, and this is a video about how not to lose your soul in the music business. He thought it was a good topic. He says, I just thought of a topic for a video, how not to lose your soul in the music business, or how to have morals in the music business. Just a thought. Or how not to get taken advantage of in the music business as a young artist. Now, like I said, I did this show before. I completely did this show. And when I got to this question, I had some interesting thoughts about it. So let's talk about the idea of not losing your soul. The way you don't lose your soul in the music business is to be true to your commitments, be true to the people you love, and make sure that you don't risk losing them in the process of going after your dream. That was the first lesson I learned in life. My wife has always supported my music, up to and including taking me to the Nashville Drum Show this year. But in actuality, there was a point in my life where I really wanted to be a full-time musician, but it just didn't happen. And it didn't happen for a couple reasons. But the main reason it didn't happen was because I realized that I had to feed the mouths of 3 kids. And feeding the mouths of 3 kids and my wife and keeping a house meant I could no longer try to go after my dream, but I had to realize that my dream was going to have to be realized in a different way. I have never given up loving playing music and playing drums and doing all the things that I do. But what I have done is I made a decision when I was about 31 years old to not go after that dream anymore and to basically take the path I was on, which was a great corporate gig, doing safety and training, and I took off with it. And that became my career. And that's what funds all of this. Most of the guys on YouTube that I know have other careers that they do to have their YouTube channels or play gigs. Very rare will you meet the guys that actually make a living at it completely. And those guys are exceptional musicians. One of the guys I talked about at the Nashville, the Music City Drum Show, was a guy named Dennis Holt. I hope to talk to him some more. I really do plan on doing that. I've just been really busy the last 2 weeks. But I'm going to hit him up after this week and basically try to connect with him. Dennis Holt has a great, I've heard him on a couple podcasts now. He has a great journey and arc, but he had points in his career he had to make decisions for his family. So the key is not to lose your soul, is to make sure you're sensitive to the people you love and you take care of. That's number one. You will lose your soul if you go after what you want and you toss all the people around you that are important. So I am blessed that I didn't do that. Now, the next part of the question was your morals. He said, how to have morals in the music business. Now, that's a different thing. That's your center. That's who you are as a human being. And who you are as a human being has to come from your relationship to the higher power that you serve in life. We all serve a higher power. Bob Dylan said this way, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. He wasn't kidding when he said that. He knew something. He had an experience with God, met the Lord, and basically realized that it was his number one hit in 1980, I guess? He won a Grammy for that album, Slow Train Comin'. And that was like Song of the Year or something. It was crazy. And it was kind of a wake-up point, because that's kind of like when my walk with God really started, like 1979. That's when it started. I was searching for God as a child. I met God as a child, but I had an encounter with Jesus with a roommate in college, and I had an acceptance of the Lord at that point in time. And then all of a sudden I was finding all this music written about Jesus music. And then all of a sudden a famous singer named Bob Dylan got saved. And he wrote this incredible song, You Gotta Serve Somebody. That's the truth of life. So your moral center comes from who you serve. That's what gives you moral character. And if you don't have a center, and you haven't found your center yet, look deep, because you probably do have one. Some people are driven by money. Some people are driven by sex. Some people are driven by ego. To keep that in check is critical to living that place where you live by a moral center. So my center has been God, has been the Lord Jesus Christ. I try to live there. Do I always make it? No. I fail miserably half the time. But I do know where that center is for me. And that's what keeps me doing the things I need to do. That's what made me make the decision to live for my family and my commitments, and to not walk away from them, to go pursue my dream. Now, like I said, my wife was with me, and we were talking about moving to Nashville and trying to make it. I was blessed to go in 1987 to Nashville to get replaced by John Hammond on an album, and to learn I was not quite ready to make it in the studios of Nashville in 1987. So that was a lesson I needed to hear, and I needed to see in my own life. But what made those lessons real was the fact that I had children that I was responsible for and mouths to feed. And my commitment to them I had to keep my commitment to them. And I am blessed. I mean, when I look at my life, you're looking at a person who's lived a great life in less than 64 years. I'll be 64 around the end of the month sometime. And when I turn 64, when I'm 64, will you still need me? Will you still need me when I'm 64? Oh, all right. I may have to cut that, by the way, because YouTube may actually UMG may want to take money from me because I sang a Beatles tune. Got to think about that. We'll see if I get that through. Because I did a terrible job singing it too, by the way. But will you still need me? Will you still love me? Will you still need me when I'm 64? I can tell you my wife loves me, needs me, and wants me at 64. That's an awesome thing. But that only comes from a commitment, a committed life that lives by the moral center that I had the day we got married. So it's really important to find your moral center. That's critical. The next piece is how do you deal with the other side of it? When you, how do you not get taken advantage in the music business as a young artist? Now, I learned that a bunch of ways. I played some gigs, and I learned some things real early on about playing gigs with people. First rule was, I would take just about any gig for just about any pay. But if I got to a gig and I knew I was getting ripped off, I would not work for that artist again. I would not work for that leader again. And as a Christian, you can be taken by Christians real easy. Because when I did Christian gigs, I've done a lot of Christian gigs for nothing. I don't even care if I got paid. It was ministry. But when you do a ministry gig with a guy and then he hires you for something else and he barely can give you gas money for a gig that you got to drive 3 hours to, I learned a valuable lesson that day. I don't do Christian weddings for $35. The going rate back then was $125 a gig for a wedding, and I made $35 by doing a Christian wedding because I was with the ministry band that was playing the wedding. Christians do some strange things to other Christians. I learned that too when I was running my own band. And I actually had a bride say to me, after she did a dollar dance and collected all kinds of cash, she basically said to me at the end of the night when I went up to her and said, okay, now you have to pay the band, you have to pay us, in cash. She said to me, we'll pay you when we get back. It's like, no, you won't. You signed a contract. You're going to pay us tonight. That's how this works. You don't renege on a contract. I had to get up in her face and her husband's face and basically say, I don't care if you take it out of the dollar bags, but I have 4 people that need to get paid on this gig and I have to pay them. So you have to pay me. So it doesn't matter if it's a brother or somebody in the world, there's always somebody trying to take advantage of you. I've told this story about working with my first country band experience where I was hired for $40 for the night to do the gig. And at the end of the night, he paid me $35 because I had 1 beer. That was ridiculous. Beers didn't cost $5 even back in that day. It was like, if it was $1, it was a big deal back then. This is called 1979. Okay? I didn't drink 5 beers. He drank 25 beers that night. He drank half the paycheck that night, the guy did, in this band. But at the end of the night, he hands me $35 and goes, this is your pay. You had a beer. I was appalled. And then he had the audacity to ask me to come play the next night. I told him, forget about it. So how do you not get taken advantage of the music business? You set standards. You set things you'll do and things you won't do. One of the things I did was I would not work with people that ripped me off. I would give them 1 shot. Second shot, forget about it. I'm out. And I can't tell you how many people I just walked away from. I said, nope, not doing your gigs. They call again. I said, sorry. I did a Shania Twain gig, a cover. It was a tribute band. Good singer. She had the Shania look. Her husband was the bass player. My friend was the drummer of the band. Okay, and they rehearsed in my studio right here for free. Rehearsed in my studio for free because they needed me to learn the material. And I gave them 2 rehearsals for free. The first rehearsal, they couldn't get their crap together. I knew all the tunes. They couldn't get their crap together. The second rehearsal, they fired the guitar player and the whole band broke up in my studio. Yet we had a gig to do the next week. They brought in a guitar player from New Jersey, okay? And we had another rehearsal. I said, listen, you got to pay me for the rehearsal. They paid me $50 for another rehearsal in my studio, okay? And that weekend we had a gig, and that weekend it was an outdoor gig, and we got rained out. And I was sitting there ready to set up when it rained out, and they called me up and said, well, the gig's rained out. It's canceled. I said, well, are you going to pay me? And they said, no. Now, I learned 18 songs for this show. I was running the show off my SPDSX. She calls me back a month later and says, hey, I got a gig. Do you want to play? And I said, no. Sorry. Not playing with you. See, I have integrity. You have to have integrity if you're going to be working in the music business. So when you're young, don't just do anything for anybody. If you get ripped off, don't do it again. That's the lessons learned. Anyhow, Jack, that's a great concept. And I don't know if I'd want to do a video on it. I'd rather do it in Ask Earl Anything, and that's why I did it here today. So I'm sure there's a lot of musicians out there that have other stories they can share. If you do, share a story with me. If you're somebody that's watching this and I said something that touched you, leave it in the comments. Maybe we'll talk about it some more next show. All right, the next one comes from Mickey F. 3730. Mickey's a great daily follower. Thank you for watching my videos, Mickey, and commenting all the time. He said, do you know if the Moises app works through hi-fi headphones? And the answer to the question is, it depends on where your Moises app is. If your Moises app is on your phone, do you have a way to hook up hi-fi headphones to it? If your Moises app is on your iPad, do you have a way of hooking up hi-fi headphones to it? Now, you should be able to do that off of a phone or off of a tablet. I use Moises on my computer to basically separate tracks, give me stems, and allows me to take the drums out of tracks. But there's a lot of other ways to use Moises. I believe you could hook up headphones to it. By the way, there was a guy who was making these really cool drummer headphones at the Nashville show. I did hawk it in my Music City Drum Show review. I thought they were the coolest things. Quite expensive, about $400, but if you want to have like cool headphones you can pipe the music into that are sound protection to your ears, keep the volumes down, and keep the you control the volumes, and it has two little condenser microphones on it that basically you can dial that knob in and listen to your drums clearly. It's like kind of like having overheads right on your head. So your kit's getting really picked up by these two stereo mics. Very, very cool headphones. I'll see if I can drop something in from that so you can see that one more time, those of you that missed the Music City Drum Show highlights. All right. Thanks for the question, Mickey. Great question. The next one comes from Joey Bag of Donuts. I met him at the Music City Drum Show with Chadwick Perry. He said, love the KZ hi-hat combos. A root on the bottom, but what is on the top? That was the question. What was on the top of my root on the bottom? Now, I don't have my root on the bottom. This is a pair of 505s today. But when I use the root on the bottom, I usually have a 2000 Sound Reflector Sound Edge top. So it's for a Sound Edge hi-hat top, 2000 Sound Reflector. The Sound Reflector, 2000 Sound Reflectors are as close to the giant beat lathing as you're going to get in any other Paiste cymbals. So by getting the Sound Reflectors, you are actually getting very close to a giant beat top sound. So it's like a 14-inch 2000 Sound Reflector top over the Rude bottom. But believe it or not, it's not that great a difference in weight, but it is a cool sounding combo, and I use it quite often. I like it a lot. My other favorite is my 505 bottom on top of the 2000 regular Sound Edge bottom. Those are two different sets of hi-hats I use that I've made myself. So thanks for the question, Joey. It's a good question. And it was great meeting you at the show. Very, very cool meeting you at the show. So, all right, the next question comes from the Tired Drummer. This is Ken, the Tired Drummer. He says, I have a question for Ask Earl Anything. I see your iPhone cameras. Do you have them set up with wireless remote to start the recording process, or do you have a manual press record? Well, I don't know how to do wireless remotes for iPhones. I have 3 iPhones, okay, a 12 and 2 10s. I've paid for the 10s outright. The 12 I'm using as my phone right now. I find the iPhones have got a great picture, and they're easy to work with, and they're easy to transfer the data from, as long as you have data on your phone. If you don't have data on your phone, then you have problems, like the last show. The last show, which I did in its entirety, and I had to scrap and start this one all over again, was done on my iPhone 12. My iPhone 12 today also got the update for ISO 17 point something or other. Didn't realize it. I had cleared all my videos out, so I thought I had plenty of space, but my show shut at 40 minutes and said, nope, sorry, we're finished, and cut me off. That's what I don't like about Apple. They have a tendency to just keep upgrading the phones automatically, and they mess with the storage. When you're in upgrade mode, you lose even more storage than you normally lose once it's upgraded. So that is one of my pet peeves about iPhones. But for the most part, how do I do it? I set my 3 cameras up. I press record, make sure they're in the right way, framing it the proper way. And I press record and I let it go. And then I play, record using the transport over here. And I'm stopping and starting, again, over and over again, redoing songs. Once I'm done, I collect all my phones, I airdrop it to my computer, and then I marry it in Final Cut Pro. The audio I actually created in Logic. I mix the audio in Logic, and then I have, 2-track files, stereo files, and I marry it to my video files in Logic Pro. The cool thing about not Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro. The cool thing about Final Cut Pro is they actually line the videos together for me and sync them together so I can actually make cuts really easy and creatively. I have been having some issues with digital problems, but I think that has mostly to do with this thing that Apple likes to do, which is kind of like pre-scan the video. And if you don't get rid of that file, sometimes you have problems with it. So I have to delete that periodically to get rid of that video digitizing thing. But other than that, these cameras work fine for me. I don't know if there's a better way. I mean, I don't stop the video after every take. And I will take takes from 10 minutes to an hour usually. Occasionally I go over an hour if it's a really hard song. But for the most part, I just play and then do it again and play again and play. And I never move from my spot. I'm just doing everything with this. So I don't have to get up and move the needle like when I was a kid. It's like sit down and hit the transport and go. That's the cool thing about the transport. So, when this is engaged, it just works. So, very cool. Anyhow, Ken, thanks for the question. One more question, I believe. The last question comes from Offbeat74. Thank you, Offbeat74, for following me and asking this question. This came after the last Ask Earl Anything. He said, Earl, what do you think of the new generation Cymbal Smiths? Which is a great question for me for this show. Great question. Thank you for the question. After going to the Music City Drum Show, I made a decision about one of my cymbals, what I'm going to do with it. But let's talk about the new Cymbal Smiths. First off, it's not that new to have Cymbal Smiths. I think the most interesting thing in the last few years is the number of Cymbal Smiths in the United States making their own independent cymbals from blanks that they get from somewhere else in the world. So there are a bunch of those guys. The first guy that was doing that I remember was Robert Spizzacino from Italy, and he made the Spizzacino cymbals, which he passed away in 2011. So if you've got a Spitz, it's worth some money. It was one of the coolest. I have a friend, my friend Alan Levine's got a couple Spitzes. So those are very cool cymbals. But remember, the independent Cymbal Smiths came out of the Zildjian factory being moved from Istanbul to Canada, and then the Zildjian company getting split into Zildjian and Sabian. After Sabian came on board, the Istanbul factory workers who knew the secret how to make the metal, the B20 metal, decided they were going to make cymbals themselves. And that was the Istanbul company. Okay, Mehmet and Agap, those two guys. Agap eventually passes away, gives it to his son, so Agap's run by the sons. Mehmet runs the other half of that factory. But those were the original K Zildjian guys making Istanbul Ks from the 60s, early 70s, 50s, and before. those were the Ks that Gretsch had the official distribution rights to sell, and that's why they ended up at the Gretsch factory in Brooklyn, New York. So all the Ks came to Brooklyn, New York, and that's why all those jazz drummers played K Zildjian cymbals, because all the Ks from Istanbul went to Brooklyn, New York. And that's where Tony Williams found his K, and that's where Elvin Jones found his K, and that's where Philly Jones found his K, and Art Blakey, and all those guys started getting Ks, and the mystique of the K began. The independent cymbal makers today are really, what they're doing is they've brought the mystique of the K back, and in a way that basically we're making these special cymbals in like the old Ks. And they're trying to sound like old Ks. But the problem is there's so many independent cymbal companies today that it's really hard to find that unique cymbal because there's so many unique cymbals. So what is that old K sound? That was what I was going after. That's what I was talking about in my Sabian video. I was talking about, I'm going for that darker K thing. Once I got the Caropes and I got that closest to the darkest K sound I ever got, that was when I realized that sound doesn't work in what I like to play. Because my Sabians were not that sound. They were dark, hand-hammered, heavy cymbals. A 19-inch medium heavy meant it had some bite to it. So it cut through the room, kind of like a Paiste does. So what happened to me after I got the Caropes, I basically went the other direction. And I started playing Paistes. So what do I think of independent cymbal makers? Well, for the most part, they're all trying to make this mysterious K, and it's gotten to the point now where some of these independent cymbal makers, they're just making stuff that's so outside, so dark, so weird, that I can't relate to it. You know, I want to relate to something that fits in the mix. It sounds like old Zildjian, sounds like old Paistes. So that's my sound. I'm like going back to my roots. But these guys are trying to take it back further and trying to find something new and unique. Now, what do I think of these independent cymbal guys like Timothy Roberts? Well, I actually think Timothy Roberts is actually a really great cymbal maker, and he makes some really cool cymbals. He can make the K thing, but he's made some other cool stuff too. And I really respect him. So I spent some time with him at his booth, and I asked him if he could be willing to take a flat ride cymbal I have, a 20-inch flat top ride, A Zildjian, 3,000 grams that I got from my friend Pat O'Donnell, if he would take it and be able to modify it. So I actually bought a cymbal mod from Timothy Roberts, shipped my cymbal a week ago, and we will see in 4 weeks or 6 weeks what he did to my cymbal. And I'm looking forward to doing a video about that process. So I will tell you my experience with an independent cymbal manufacturer real soon. Number one, I will say Timothy Roberts is a really cool guy. I've had great email interaction with him and great conversations at the show. I love what he's doing. So it'll be really interesting what he's doing and what he does to my cymbal. Now, the other thing is, when we talked, he said, yeah, it's gotten to the point where there's a lot of the dark stuff. But he's trying to find some more middle ground cymbals. He's making some cymbals in the more traditional kind of A-ish kind of way, you know, where they kind of have enough weight to them so they can be kind of played on a commercial date. And they're not just jazz cymbals. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting when you think about the whole thing. And I think that's a great question. And it's a great question to end on today, because that's, you know, maybe not the next show, but definitely by the October show, I should have something on that cymbal. And I'm really looking forward to getting that and seeing what I can do with that flat ride. And maybe I'll have some other cymbals modded, because we were talking about, he's had a lot of the Caropes modded because guys don't like them. But I think my problem with that Carope is I need a Carope that's heavier. That's what I need. I need a more medium weight Carope. I got a really thin Carope. And I don't think I can go for the super thin, even though the craziest thing is this weight of this cymbal is the same weight as that Carope, but this has way more presence to it. You know, this Paiste 2000 Big Beat Ride, It's a dark cymbal, but it really cuts. So the weight is not all of it. It's hammering. It's the type of metal. There's a lot to it. Timothy's getting his blanks from Brazil. His B20 blanks from Brazil. Some of these guys get it from China. And some of the early independent cymbal makers like Bosphorus, Soul Tone, they were getting them from Istanbul, made in Istanbul. So now, that's all I want to say about that. If anybody else has any questions more about this and my thoughts on it, I'd love to share some more. Maybe I'll share some more after the Timothy Roberts video on the flat ride. So I will be doing a video on the flat ride cymbal and my thoughts of it. So anyhow, that's it. Thank you all for watching my show and being a part of my show and being a part of my community. I appreciate your prayers this month, those of you that made it to the end. And as always, I'm going to keep trying to put out as much content as I can put out. I'll do the best I can. Until next time, thanks for watching Ask Earl Anything. You guys have a great day. God bless.